Welcome to Tuesday Talks. I'm Darleen. My special guest is Trang, and I'm so excited. Trang has a business called Aligned Performance. She's a mentor that helps you as you pivot, redefine your career, or transform your life to live out your purpose and potential. Now, in her mid-20s, Trang experienced a quarter-life crisis that led her to leave the sports industry so she could contribute to change. Whoops. And you can see I don't edit like I don't edit. Change at a more comprehensive and global scale. Now, Trang is determined to help other women step into their greatest power and thrive in their lives of impact. And I'm so excited because Trang is going to talk about imposter syndrome, which so many of us as business women have, and not just business women. There are men that have it as well. So welcome, Trang.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Darlene. And thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. And so I'd love to know more about the quarter life crisis and how you actually then got into, helping women with all of this.
Oh, yes, this is a story. And I bet that many of you listening won't expect that this quarter life crisis started by stepping on a snail. So what actually happened was I was working, as you mentioned, in the sports industry. I was a physiotherapist, a running and strength coach, and I was generally doing well. I was generally happy. I was generally, comfortable, until this one morning when I'd gotten up early to go for a run, step out on the sidewalk and hear a crunch. I looked down, I'm like, what's that? What's going on? And I'd stepped on a snail. Now, this isn't the first time that I'd stepped on a snail before, but for some reason, this particular morning, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I felt guilty that, like, me doing my own thing, living my own life, I'd caused such an effect on something outside of me. Like in this case, I'd actually killed something. And that actually got me thinking. And as I continued to run, and then for the following months, I started to see the bigger picture of, oh my gosh, like I feel so guilty about this one instance, but already in so many other ways, like my current lifestyle, my existence on this planet has a greater impact on humanity, on other forms of life, on the environments that I wouldn't see in my day-to-day life. And this got me into this emotional spiral that, got me questioning, well, how else can I use my power in my lifetime on this planet to create as much of an impact as possible? I went through this quarter life crisis. I was questioning, oh, what's the meaning of my life? Like, what can I do? What do I want to do with my life? And then it got to the point where, going into the gym and teaching people how to squat, teaching people how to do wrist exercises, for me, it just wasn't enough anymore. Like, I wanted to become more, I wanted to do more, and I wanted to work with women in particular, being one myself, as human beings, like not just as athletes. I didn't want to help them just run faster anymore. I wanted to help them transform their lives so that they could thrive in their lives. And then I believe that when enough human beings thrive, when enough individuals thrive, then humanity will thrive. And then when humanity thrives, then the world will thrive. And then that led to my pivot, and that led to me going down the path of now working with women to build their dream career or business of impact.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And you never know what can actually change our life. There was, excuse me, just you stepping on that snail changed your direction of your life. And I love how you're now helping women in their life and, business. And with this thing called imposter syndrome. Now, I know all about it because I've been there, done that. So I know.
I feel you.
Yeah. And I think for me, it was a way that I was brought up. I was brought up to never talk about myself like, I achieved this or I achieved that, tall poppy syndrome. So all of that kind of stuff. So when I got into business, of course, all of that came in. And so I'd love to, for you to talk about, because I know you've actually got a definition and statistics.
Yes, for sure. And I totally get what you're saying there, Darlene, because I've had it as well, like especially when I was pivoting and changing
Mhm.
careers. And the reason why I think a lot of listeners will resonate with this is because up to 80% of people will experience imposter syndrome in their life. Yeah, it's a high number, 80%. And that is across all genders, all backgrounds, all experience, all professional settings. There is no, demographic, there's no group of people who are immune to imposter syndrome. And the interesting thing is, it's actually a phenomenon that affects a certain group of people that we wouldn't expect. And what I'm alluding to is that the actual definition of imposter syndrome, which is first studied and named by psychologists in 1978, Pauline Roseclance and Suzanne Ines, they looked at imposter syndrome, and they found that it actually describes high achieving individuals who, despite their objective successes, fail to internalize their accomplishments,
Mm.
have persistent self-doubt and fear of being exposed as a fraud or imposter.
Mm. Wow.
And that's so interesting because
Mm.
I didn't think that previously. I didn't think that imposter syndrome was disproportionately
Mm.
affecting high achieving individuals. You'd think
Mm.
that those who are more accomplished would be more confident, would be more convicted in themselves. But no, that's not always the case.
Wow, that's just kind of blown me away, actually. It's
Yeah.
like, but it explains so much because, there's lots of people that start businesses, yet to get into that, like, 1% of, 6 and 7 figures or more, there's not that many.
Mm, totally. Like
Mm.
that's the thing, I was looking at why high achieving individuals experience imposter syndrome more than other demographics. And there are so many reasons. Like once we go into business, like you and me, once we
Mhm.
go into business, we start opening our horizons, expanding to who we might look up to,
Mm.
who we want to become more like. And suddenly we become a fish, not just in a tank, we
Mm.
become a fish in an ocean of
Mhm.
many other fish, but not just fish, like sharks and whales. And then we feel so small relative to these whales that are out there. And then suddenly we feel gap of who we need to become and what we need to achieve, that seems so much more vast than it
Mm.
previously did. And then that
Mm.
brings on that experience of
Mm.
imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I totally get that because in the past I used to put people on pedestals because, oh, look,
Mhm.
look what they've achieved and all that. And it's like when you really, when you actually have a chance to talk to them and actually understand how they got there, you're like, they're just like me. They're just
Yeah.
like me.
Yes. Yep. That's always the case, isn't it? Like
Mm.
we put someone on a pedestal, we idolize them.
Mm.
And then when we actually speak to them, very often what happens is they say the same back to us, like
Yeah.
especially if we have a relationship and we know
Mm.
each other. Like I remember I went to an event once. It was a retreat, and there was someone there who I had been idolizing for such a long time. Like I looked up to them on social media. I thought that they were crushing it and so beyond where I was. Yet at the retreat, when we got speaking, they actually opened up to me and they were like, no way that you've been thinking that. Like, I feel the same about you. Like, I
Mm.
feel like you were so far ahead of me. And in a way, I've almost like felt resentment towards you because felt like you have been achieving all the things that I want to be
Mm.
achieving. And we're like, oh my gosh, we both feel the same thing about each other. And it's like, okay, there's something going on here. This is clearly an illusion that
Mm.
we need to work through. This is purely a working of our mind.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I love how you've actually, said that because where was my train of thought going? Oh, that's right. Sometimes I'm sure I've got one of those brains that goes, oh yeah, let's go here and here.
Yes, I get you. I get you so much.
But I was going to talk about because a lot of people get imposter syndrome, or they could do. This is just something I've discovered because all of that stuff out there. Oh, look at me! I've made 10K months, and I've done this, and I've done that. But when you actually look at them, that's not their profit. Their profit could be $1,000. So
Yes.
they're putting themselves out to be, look at me, look at me. Yet when you really nail down, they're not like that. That's not them. They're just putting this thing out to go, and to do it to get more clients, which is not, it's not healthy.
Yeah, there's a huge, it's a huge culture with the social media world. It's very easy, right, to put out there the highlights, all of the wins, skew the statistics,
Mm-hmm.
skew the results that we're getting. And then that's all we see of another person. Whereas for ourselves, we live within ourselves. We know all of our highs and our wins, as well as all of our failures and setbacks and weaknesses. And we forget that everyone else also have those failures and those setbacks as well. So yeah, kind of reminding ourselves, we've got to just keep reminding ourselves that everyone's human, everyone's on this journey. And yeah, like everything that we're experiencing and feeling, yeah, we're not alone. We're not that unique. Others go through that as well.
They do, yeah, definitely, yeah. And so, what step or not steps? What would you actually say to someone that's feeling this imposter syndrome? What advice could you give them?
So many things that I
Yeah.
could share. I think the first one is a reminder that imposter syndrome is simply an illusion. Like the feeling of, the feeling of doubt and the feeling of, uncertainty, that of course is valid. The feeling itself is valid, but the actual thoughts and beliefs that we are not worthy, or we're not actually legitimate, or we're not as accomplished as we believe, that itself is an illusion. And that's due to a phenomenon that happens in the human brain, human psychology, called the negativity bias, which is our human brain will naturally latch on to anything that's negative, any negative feedback that we receive, any setbacks, any failures. Our brain will latch onto that and use that to define our worth and to define our capabilities. So there could be this one setback that we've had, and we can just really focus on that, and then filter out the 20 other things that we've accomplished that actually highlight that we are very much accomplished and capable and, worthy. But because of this negativity bias, we latch onto that one negative piece of feedback and then forget about the other 20. So remembering that it's an illusion, remembering that it is natural and normal. Remember, up to 80% of people experience imposter syndrome. It is only natural that as a high achiever, if you are building a business, if you are making moves quickly, if you are in not just a tank, but an ocean of other incredible women or business owners or entrepreneurs, that is only natural to be feeling that. But the real step is to face that feeling of fear, to look at that fear in the face or that doubt in the face, and then to move forwards regardless, to take action regardless. Because it's not about not feeling that experience. Once again, it's natural. We're going to feel it as we strive for major goals. It's about acknowledging that feeling, that thought, and then taking steps forwards regardless.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and what actually helped me, because for those following know that I have actually had symptoms of mental illness like depression and that. So I went and seen a psychologist, and I loved it. Like, she was amazing. I moved, so I haven't got her anymore, unfortunately. But she was amazing. And then I went and did a diploma of counselling. So I've done all that beautiful stuff, and I still continue to do it. If something comes up, I'm actually looking at it. So instead of spiraling down, I actually sit there in the emotions and go, okay, what's coming through? And it just, to be in that space, to be able to do that now is incredible. But as I said, in the past, I had that imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Recognizing that, like moving through it, because yeah, if we're so in it, then we're
Mhm,
gonna become one with it. We're gonna identify as this, this
mhm,
person with these feelings that we're not capable. But as soon as we do what you just said, Darlene, see someone, talk to someone about it,
mhm,
step out,
mhm,
observe what's going on. And there is something so powerful about having a figure in our life. Yeah, whether it is a psychologist or a mentor or a
mhm,
friend who sees the highest version of us, who backs us, who
mhm,
has full faith in us. There is something so potent about that. Yes, I really do believe in, having that intrinsic
mhm,
empowerment, but why not harness the power of as much as we can, having that intrinsic, but also extrinsic.
mhm,
So have someone to just really back us. And
mhm,
that, from my experience with all the different mentors that I have worked with, I know that it creates leaps in my decisions and in my actions, because I'm
mhm,
like, yeah, I've got someone who sees what I see, and they are backing me
mhm.
all the way.
Yeah, yeah. And that's just so important. And, so many people have said it. Mentors need mentors, coaches need coaches, psychologists need psychologists. We all need someone to help us because people think, oh, look, Darlene, you're a mindset mentor. You shouldn't have any mindset troubles. Well, yes, I still do. I'm human for crying out loud. So that's
Yeah.
why, as you said, it's so important to have that person that really sees the best in us, sees what I like to say, sees our soul, really just
Yes.
sees that. So that's what I love doing when I look at people. It's like their physical body just disappears and I actually see their soul. And when that happens, it's just phenomenal. So yeah, having someone to believe in you is so important.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep. Totally agreed. I love that.
Yeah. And what other beautiful advice could you give someone? So now we've looked at having someone to help us, look at that fear and gently move forward. What's next?
Mm. Something that I love to do myself, and I teach my clients, is visualizations.
Mhm.
I believe in them so much. I find them so powerful. They have the ability to change our state like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
They really do. And in particular, when it comes to squashing imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
there's a particular visualization process that I do myself, and I teach, called the future programming visualization. And this visualization is all about projecting our minds into the future and visualizing a particular event or a particular scenario that is coming up that we may be feeling imposter syndrome about. And there is scientific research on how these visualization processes, they can actually change the way that the neural connections in our brain are laid out,
Mhm.
which can immediately create changes in our state and in our confidence. So there is research on this. And
Mhm.
when it comes to the future programming visualization, there are 6 steps that you can go through. What I'd recommend is sit down, close your eyes and slow everything down, come into the present moment, and then cast your mind into the future and see a scene that's unfolding in front of you. And that scene is 5 minutes after successful completion of this event. So let's say, for example, you might have a job interview, maybe have a podcast interview with someone who you really look up to. Maybe you're launching a business, like launching something. So visualize and see this scene as though it's 5 minutes after that has successfully been completed, and see like what's happening. What are you doing in that moment? Who are you surrounded by? What are you hearing in that moment? And the more senses that we can actually incorporate into this visualization, the stronger the visualization becomes. Because, a bit of a side note, like our reality is simply based off our 5 senses,
Mhm.
right? Like what we see, what we smell, what we taste, what we hear, what we feel. Without any of those senses, we don't have a reality. So when we do a visualization and we incorporate all 5 senses, our brain doesn't actually know the difference
Mhm.
between a very strong visualization and a reality. So the stronger we make this visualization, the more we can convince our brain. So the first step is visualize and immerse ourselves into that moment 5 minutes after successful completion. and then start to move backwards. So 5 minutes after, and then 5 minutes before successful completion, and then 3/4 of the way through the event, halfway through the event, and then quarter of the way through the event. And we're working backwards so that we familiarize ourselves with the whole event. We become really comfortable with it. We almost trick our brain into thinking that it's already happened.
Mm.
And we then feel more familiar, more comfortable, and more confident to approach this event. So working backwards from 5 minutes after to 5 minutes before, stopping briefly at each moment, 3/4 of the way through, halfway through, a quarter of the way through, and then briefly come to the start, and then repeat that whole process through 2 more times. Magic number of 3. Do it 3 times. So that is the future programming visualization, to become so familiar with this event. Visualize that successful completion, how it looks, how it sounds, how it feels, and create that deep rooted conviction of this is how it's going to go. And then that, of course, creates, certain thoughts, certain images in our mind, certain feelings, and then we manifest or create that reality just through our internal world getting reflected into the external world in the future. So this can be like a few minutes, depending on how much time you have. You could run this through just a 5-minute visualization. It could also be longer. It could also be 20, 30 minutes. But I remember the first time I did this, it was game changing, because I had run my first workshop years ago, and I was so sick with nervousness before the first workshop. And it didn't help that first workshop, like 2 people came, plus my mum and dad. And then one of those people actually fell asleep during the workshop. That didn't help.
Oh.
So then by the time I was running my second workshop, you could probably, imagine why I was feeling so anxious about this second workshop. And then I applied this future programming visualization. I did it once, and then I did it every night for the 2 weeks leading into the workshop. And on the day of the workshop, the second time I ever ran a workshop in person, I just felt a sense of calm. I just felt peace. I knew exactly how it was going to go, because I had seen it happen time and time again. So yeah, I really stand by this visualization process. Would highly, highly recommend.
I love that, because I love visualizations. That's a part of my the programs I have, and it's just, and I love how you said there's scientific proof, because there is. That reminds me of when I've heard, especially sports people, they actually visualize winning the race and doing all of that. And I think that's where it
Yes.
came from.
Yes. Yeah. Mental rehearsal
Mm,
before like a sporting event.
mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so good. And I mean, it's the same thing with being in business, like we might, it might be the first time that we're actually having a discovery call with someone, and we're like, oh my goodness,
Yes.
we're sort of panicking, will they think I'm the right person, or will I stumble over my words? So doing this is perfect. It's
Yeah.
absolutely perfect, because someone does book in, they don't like book in and it's an hour later. You've actually got time to then do this visualization.
Yes, absolutely. That's it. So yeah, do it frequently leading up to an event, because as
Mm.
you say, there's going to be time to mentally and emotionally prepare.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing, is emotionally, like, really tap into those feelings. And for someone that is struggling with tapping into their feelings, then seek help, because that's what happened with me. I had trauma, so I detached. And so I didn't feel anything. And that's why, I then sought help. And now I'm able to just, like, even now talking about it, I can feel stuff. It's incredible. And so
Yeah.
when you do that visualization, tapping into the feelings, as you said, just makes it so much stronger.
Yes.
Mm,
Yep.
yeah.
All for it. The
Yeah.
future programming visualization. And there are other visualizations as
Mm,
well. But this is like such a set, it's a set kind of like routine that you can do.
mm,
So you don't have to kind of like think about what to visualize. This is it. You do those stages through the event, run it through, repeat, repeat, repeat. And, beliefs are simply repeated thoughts. So the more that you repeat it, the more that you create that certainty and that conviction of, yeah, I'm not just going to be okay. I'm going to crush it. I'm going to show up. I'm going to
Yeah.
shine my light.
Mhm. Yeah. I love that. It's just so cool. And
Yeah.
so now that they've done that, what would be the sort of the next steps to continue to work on this imposter syndrome?
Mm. Yeah, there's so many different
Mm,
aspects because like when it comes to imposter syndrome, it's essentially like that feeling of self-doubt, right? It's like that feeling of, okay, am I worthy? Am I capable? And there are different tiers to self-doubt. So there's like the intellectual mental tier of, oh, like, am I even acknowledging, am I even recognizing that I am good enough, that I am worthy? But there's also the emotional tier because someone can intellectually recognize that they've got multiple uni degrees and they've got a
mm,
business and they're also, you know, a mother and trying and juggling a family at the same time. There are women out there who can recognize that, but they don't actually feel it.
mhm,
They don't actually feel in their body their worth.
mm,
There's a disconnect between the intellectual tier and the emotional tier. And then you can go beyond to there's the spiritual tier as well, where it's like, oh, regardless of what we achieve on this planet, do we feel worthy purely by existing and being here on this planet? Do we feel inherently worthy? So there are multiple tiers. And I think another thing to do is on a regular basis, and I'm doing this currently, it's part of my weekly routine. At the end of every week, I do a reflection process. And part of that process is intellectually acknowledging 10 different ways that I've showed up in that week, 10 different things that I did or I was, or things that I embodied that make me feel worthy, like make me love myself, make me
mm,
proud of myself, make me feel like I belong. And then I write that out. And I don't just write it out just to get it over and done with and tick it off the
mm,
checklist. I write it out and I make sure that I take a moment to close my eyes. I'm doing it right now
mm,
and feel that pride,
mm,
feel that love, that sensation in my chest or in my gut or whatever it might be for you, but
mm,
actually feel it. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, at the start, it is a very challenging exercise because what you said, Darlene, you know, a lot of us are taught, especially in Australia, where
mm,
tall poppy syndrome is huge. We're taught and we're conditioned to play small, to not talk ourselves up too much so that we don't threaten other people and how they feel about themselves. Um, it's not something that we're conditioned to do. It's going to be challenging at the start, but just like anything, the more we practice it, the easier it gets, the more natural it feels, the less icky it feels. And the more we're like, yes, I actually feel good owning myself, like acknowledging how bloody great I was this week. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend as an ongoing practice because
mm.
I do that myself and I find that it changes my state immediately.
Mm, it does, yeah. And, acknowledging not just things that you've done in business, but things you've done in life. It could be the
Mm,
fact that, a friend invited you to go for a walk around the neighborhood and you did that, you know,
yes.
something like that. And then, like, that's what my friend and I did on the weekend. And we discovered, like, I've discovered three little parks. And it's like, hang on, I didn't know they were there. And, it's so cool, and that brought so much joy to me because I've discovered some of my neighborhood, and
Uh-huh.
then acknowledging things in your business, and it doesn't matter how big or small we think it is, and I'm doing that in brackets for people listening, because it's the actual acknowledgement, the fact that you've gone, "I've done that, and I'm really loving the fact that I've done that."
Yes, that
Mm,
is spot on, darling. I love that you said that. Because you know, like do this with anyone, and I used to do, and I do this too. I can fall into this pattern. It's
mm,
like the first few on the list is always going to be like business related achievements, maybe financial related
mm,
achievements. And then the further we go down the list, it becomes less about the business and about the finances. And it's like all the other things, you know, oh, I had a beautiful interaction with a family member or a friend. I stopped and complimented a stranger on the street. I actually took time to myself and got creative in my cooking or in my painting or something like that. And that comes down later in the list. But when we actually stop and look at what fills us up the most, is often those things that are later down the list. And I had that realization because I did this huge list at the end of 2022 for the whole year. And I think I wrote down like 50 items. And at the start, it was so easy, like business, financial. And then the very last one, number 50, was as simple as, I have created my dream life. I am living my dream life that I would have done anything for just 5 years ago. And when I looked at this list, I'm like, this is backwards. The last thing that I wrote that took me 49 other items to get to should be the first one, should be the biggest one. And that dream life doesn't necessarily have to do with like anything material. It's the fact that I get to do what I want, when I love, with who I love. I get to go out into nature, living by the beach, like all those things that come to my mind when I visualize my dream life. Like it is those things. So yeah, get around it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And yeah, you're right with living your dream life. And that's where imposter syndrome can come into it. Because, I still remember it's occasionally around this laptop lifestyle. You see all these photos of people on the beach with their laptop. Look at me. And it's like, but what if you don't want to do that? What if you don't want to do that? That's not necessarily your life. And so
Yeah.
really, taking the time to jot down what your dream life is and seeing that you've already started achieving some of it. You might already be there like you, or you might be actually taking the steps to get there.
Yes. That is, yep. I love that you bring that up, Darleen, because it can be easy to get caught up in what other people, and we were talking about this before. It's like that illusion of everyone else has the perfect life. But when we are, and this is another thing, when we do become really clear on our own values, our own outcomes and desires, then we don't get muddled up with thinking that what everyone else is chasing is also what we want. We don't get confused. We don't get caught up in that. And then we can also then actually walk through our life with more conviction and clarity. So yeah, if someone else is like, oh, why isn't your business making $500,000 a year? I mean, no one really says that, but let's say like, little things, right? People posting, oh, hit my first 7-figure year in business. Then we don't actually need to, we don't get caught up in that, and we don't get that imposter syndrome, because we're like, oh, so happy for you that you got that. But that's not actually what I want. I don't necessarily want that 7-figure business. I don't necessarily want to have that laptop lifestyle. And that's not, that's not what it is that I am striving for. And that actually helps with imposter syndrome. It's actually being so clear on what is aligned to us and what isn't. Because then, like, if anyone else were to give any advice or pressure us into something or judge us at all, we're like, nah, that's you and happy for you, but I'm not you. And being able to say that not only feels fantastic, but it is exactly that. It is walking through life with our head held high, with this convicted and powerful energy.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how you said about, not wanting the 6 and 7 figures, because I know of business women that don't want to reach that. They want to have a bit of, more of a lifestyle to suit them. And that's how this business will help them. So they might only want to earn a couple thousand a month. And that's perfect. So for anyone, listening, if that's what you want to do, then you go for it. And you don't let anyone say, oh, but you should be earning 6, 7 figures. No, you earn what you want to earn.
Yeah. Make your own rules, do whatever you want. And if you do strive for multiple 6 figures, 7 figures, multiple 7 figures, then strive for that too. Everyone has their own reason for doing things, and everyone has their own outcomes of what they are striving for in their lives. So yeah, you do you, and you create whatever it is that your dream life is.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. And I just want to end on that because that's so beautiful. So beautiful. So again, create your dream life the way you want it to be, what it is for you. Thank you, Trang, so much. And for anyone watching the YouTube, in the description, I've actually got how you can find Trang. So please go and follow her, because I don't believe in competition. I believe in lifting us all up. And that's why I've got everything possible. Thank you for watching this Tuesday Talks. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, all that amazing stuff that supports people. Thank you very much.